The water got gradually less deep, and within not long at all, it was only ankle deep as they turned the last corner and they arrived back on solid ground. Limbo's grot was around half the size of the cathedral and far more drab. There was no ornate crystals, just dark grey rock. Cash couldn't tell if it was the anxiety she was feeling or if it also felt heavier, darker, and had a much more unwelcoming atmosphere. She put her thoughts to the side as they pulled Tom up into the cave. The colour had begun to return to his face, though she could still see his body tremble intermittently and involuntarily.
All right, let's get this wetsuit back off,
said Gianna, unzipping the back for him as Cash crouched down and helped pull off his shoes.
Oh, 2 women undressing me. Must be my lucky day,
said Tom weakly.
You must be feeling better,
said Gianna as she rolled her eyes.
Well, this is definitely helping.
Tom let out a small laugh. Cash threw Tom's shoes to the ground, opened his bag, pulled out his thin towel, and wrapped it around his shoulders.
There, get dried off and I'll hand you your clothes.
Thanks,
replied Tom. He was clearly still shaken because Cash was sure she'd never heard him say please or thank you for anything before. Once they got Tom sorted and warmed up, Gianna and Cash set about changing themselves. Cash noticed Gianna steal a quick glance at her as she stood in her bikini and smiled to herself as she pulled her sweatshirt on. She made a decision right then and there to talk to Gianna about how she felt before the end of the trip. Just as the 2 women had finished changing, they heard voices bouncing down the passage and into the grotto. Cash felt her stomach that had been clenched the entire time Kian had been gone finally start to relax. Within moments, Alejandro and Kian appeared around the corner.
Ha! Told you it wouldn't be long,
said Kian.
How you doing, buddy?
He asked Tom.
Better. These 2 couldn't wait to get my clothes off after you left.
Oh, all right. He's back,
said Kian, breathing a sigh of relief.
So, Alejandro and I checked the sun point the way back through. There was a wee jag sticking out on the opposite wall to the line. Reckon you caught the leg of your wetsuit on it.
Oh, yeah?
said Tom, suddenly serious.
And how does that explain the veil of fucking blood appearing out of nowhere?
Ah, well, that's actually explainable too. I think when you panicked, you must have disturbed an iron deposit on the cave wall.
It went bloody before I started panicking.
Well, then maybe someone else loosened it when they went through.
Tom's face flashed with annoyance, and Kian quickly jumped in.
But whatever happened, it's pretty fucking scary. How are you feeling? Do you want to head back?
Tom looked at the group staring down at him. Although he knew what he felt and what he saw, and even thinking about it again for a moment sent a shudder through his body, he just couldn't be the reason that they had to terminate this adventure. His dad popped into his head, and an obscure childhood memory materialised. He was on the floor crying at the park after falling from the climbing frame. His dad had given him a right bollocking for shedding a tear and called him a pussy. Besides, maybe it was just all in his head. God knows he'd been hitting the powders hard recently. He breathed in deeply, pulled a small aeroplane miniature of vodka from his bag and downed it in one.
No, we're here now. Let's bloody do this.
Sure?
Inquired Kian.
Yeah, of course,
said Tom, forcing himself to sound more confident than he felt.
All right then. Let's have a wee break. Have some lunch and make a plan.
Sounds great,
piped in Alejandro. They all set about opening their packs and tucking into sandwiches and other snacks they'd picked up in Biera. Dry and full, they set about the next step of their trip. They decided to choose an opening at the far back of the cave. It was the one least likely to have had any visitors, as the opening was tight and somewhat obscured by a large rock which hid it in the shadows. Kian had done a preliminary sweep into the entrance, and although it was tight for a little ways, there was an echo, which meant they opened up somewhere not too far down. They all gathered at the entrance.
Oh, this is it. Uncharted territory,
announced Kian, his voice trembling in anticipation.
Let's fucking go.
Kian laid on the ground and pushed his head and shoulders into the hole, and within a few moments his feet disappeared into the crevice, accompanied by the sound of scrabbling, scratching and heavy breathing as he inched himself further into the slip, pausing every now and then to exhale all the air from his lungs and force himself through the parts of the tunnel when he was pinned between the ceiling and the cave floor. After around 10 minutes, the cave dropped down into a little pit. Kian yanked himself through the last few inches of the stone tube and fell a few feet to the ground. He gulped in a big lug of air, enjoying the full expansion of his ribcage. The air tasted thick and damp. Kian took a moment to take in the feeling of awe to be the first person potentially ever to be standing in this room, and excitedly started thinking about what they should name the passage. As was tradition in the caving community, the first person to enter a new space got to christen it.
Okay, I'm through.
Yelled Kian.
It's a little tight, but I'm almost able to stand down here.
Hooray, I'm heading in! Echoed Cashew's voice from back down the tunnel, ricocheting and distorting as it bounced along the walls. Cash struggled to push herself into the squeeze and scraped her palms pretty bad on the gravel. She had to concentrate really hard to remain calm at the parts that clamped your body, but the sense of accomplishment when she dropped into the small cavern to join Kian is why she did this. The others crammed their way through the chute, and pretty soon they all dropped into the space, Kian giving each of them a high five, a cheesing grin, and a well done as they entered.
Well done.
With all of them inside, it was pretty crowded.
Well done.
At the end of the space, there were 2 heavy cracks in the wall. Kian shuffled over to them and cocked his head to one side, peering inside each.
Well, they both look about as tight as what we just came through, so who wants to choose?
Alejandra crawled forward and poked her head inside both of the cracks.
I think the right one.
Right it is,
said Kian.
It just gives me a better vibe.
She laughed.
Ah, a well-researched choice from our resident scientist.
Alejandra laughed again.
All right, folks. Now, I'm sure this is uncharted territory, because it's not named on any of the diagrams. We have to start thinking of names.
Cash felt another little shudder of excitement run through her. The idea of a name from her own head being immortalised by future cavers traversing these very tunnels made her feel as though she would be a part of history and the sport. It was cool to think about. Her mind started buzzing with ideas. Kian took a sip from his water bowl and wiped the sweat that had accumulated on his brow from the former squeeze, and once again led the way into the unknown. Soon Gianna and Cash had followed him, leaving Tom and Alejandra to bring up the rear. After a little while, the lead group's voices had become a low hum and their words had become indecipherable.
Okay, let's get going,
said Alejandra, satisfied that they were far enough ahead that there wouldn't be a pile-up. Tom crawled into the entrance of the stone tube and started to wriggle inside, but just as his feet disappeared from sight, he let out a rasp of pain.
Are you okay?
Nah, shit, fuck. Help pull me back.
Alejandra grabbed his ankles and pulled with all her weight as Tom flailed against the walls of the tunnel, knocking rocks and stones loose as he struggled to get his arms into a position where he could push his torso out of the tight squeeze. Pain shooting through his body in waves like jolts of hot electricity. Together they finally pulled his body free, and he dropped hard to the floor of the cave in a twisted mess. He breathed heavily as sweat dripped down from his face, and he scrambled to pull up his trouser leg to reveal his ankle, which felt like it had been dipped in acid. As he yanked up the material and pulled down the cuff of his sock, which peeled away from his skin with a grotesque, sticky, tearing noise, and there, underneath, where the faint red mark had previously sat, was a cluster of bright yellow blisters and torn pustules scattered across an angry red stain that bore a striking resemblance to a human handprint, but with a gap where the ring finger should be. Tom felt his stomach drop.
Jesucristo!
Exclaimed Alejandra, shocked at the aggressive-looking wound.
That looks bad.
It feels like it's on fucking fire.
Screeched Tom, writhing in pain.
It looks like an allergic reaction. Maybe when you scraped it?
Tom rolled his eyes.
Tell me that's not a bloody handprint,
replied Tom, fighting his own temper and new ripple of fear which rose through the pain.
Yes, it is a little uncanny,
agreed Alejandra, just to keep him calm, although she felt he was overreacting.
Okay, so I think I have a few things that will make this a little less sore.
Please use them, like, right now,
said Tom through gritted teeth.
Well, I would like to, of course, but Kian has the first aid kit.
What? Fuck.
Alright, it's okay. It's okay. Look, the others are only a little ways ahead. I can go get it, tell them to wait or come back, and grab the things I need.
You're gonna leave me here?
Said Tom, his voice cracking in panic.
Well, unless you think you want to try again to get through.
Tom interrupted with a loud moan of pain, followed by an indecipherable stream of curse words as he squeezed his hands into tightly balled fists and pulsed them, stabbing his dirty nails into his palms to cope with the shock waves coming from his ankle.
It's the only way.
Finished Alejandra, her face now etched with a growing concern. Tom felt his heart pounding in his ears as he thought of being left alone, but he knew she was right. He breathed deeply and tried to calm himself, before nodding quickly and wincing hard.
It's okay. I'll be quick, I promise.
Okay.
Before I go, let's pour some water on this. Try and get as much of whatever is causing the irritation rinsed away.
She snapped open her backpack and grabbed a fresh bottle of water, clicked open the lid and emptied half of it onto the wound, that was seemingly getting worse and more pissed off by the second.
Is that helping?
I don't know.
Alejandra passed him the half-empty bottle.
Here, just keep putting this on in little splashes. And deep breaths, okay?
Tom nodded.
Okay, back soon.
With that, Alejandra closed her bag and dived into the squeeze entrance, and within a few seconds had disappeared from sight. Tom took some solace in the fact that he could hear her scuffling into the tunnel, but after a few minutes the sound was gone and he was left alone. The room seemed so close. He tried to focus on his breathing and imagine he was somewhere else. He thought about being at his favourite pub once they were home and telling the lads all about this, probably selling himself as some kind of legend in the comfort and warmth of the old bar where the carpet smelled like spilled booze and the years of indoor smoking had stained the ceilings yellow. Sat in his favourite booth with a cold beer in hand. Just as he began to feel his heartbeat begin to finally slow down, he was dragged right back into the cold, dingy hole as the light on his headlamp began to flicker and strobe light off his eyelids. The panic rose again, a cold, icy flow coursing up his throat.
Shit, bollocks, shit.
Tom grabbed his bag and wrenched it open, scrabbling madly for its contents for his spare headlamp in the dimming, flashing light. Finally he found it, but as he pulled it out of the dry pack opening, it slipped free of his fingers and clattered to the floor. He snapped it up quickly, but as he turned it over, he saw immediately the plastic cover was cracked and the bulb inside was smashed. He swallowed hard. The thought of being in the dark alone and in pain was too much. He plunged his hand into his bag. As he did so, the light on his head went out. Blood rushing inside his ears, he fumbled around, his desperate fingers searching blindly for his emergency glow sticks. Suddenly he stopped dead. His ears picked up a noise that sounded like it was coming from the opposite side of the room. A sickening, slow, slithering that sounded like something moving towards him. His eyes searched hopelessly and frantically in the darkness for any hint of movement, but it was pitch black. No light penetrating the squalid hollow.
Hello?
Said Tom. The noise stopped for a moment. Tom tried to hold his breath and strained his ears to listen in the black void. After a minute of complete, thick silence, he pursed his lips and breathed out a long, slow sigh. Must be a rat or something, he tried to convince himself, or some gravel slipping further down the tunnel. He breathed in and out heavily as he tried to force his brain to come up with a logical reason for the sound. Suddenly he remembered he was looking for his glow sticks, and after a few moments of rummaging, his fingertips closed around a small cylinder.
Bingo.
He said aloud. Just then the noise started up again, this time much closer, and abruptly, out of the looming darkness, he felt a hot gust on his face, followed by the putrid smell of decay and rot. Tom gagged, half from the smell, half from the visceral fear that swept through his entire being. The gust blew into his nostrils again, and his stomach knotted as he realised something was breathing on him, barely inches from his head. Tom sat frozen in fear, his body vibrating. He felt another breath, followed by what felt like a wet, stringy and warm slaver of gooey spittle drip down onto his forearm. Suddenly his body jerked into life. He ripped his hand from his bag, still gripping the glow stick, and punched wildly in front of him. His hand tore through bare air and slammed into nothing but the cold cave wall, the impact cracking the glow stick and his knuckles. Tom glared around chaotically, searching for the thing in the dim glow of light beginning to emanate from the activated glow stick.
What the fuck?
He whispered to himself as his eyes saw naught but the empty space around him. Was he hallucinating? Was the reaction that bad? He was so confused. He looked down at his now bleeding knuckles. For a moment he sat trembling, trying with all his might to quell the anxiety burning like lava in the pit of his stomach. He made a decision then and there to fuck with the pain in his ankle. He couldn't stay in this room a moment longer. If he was hallucinating, he needed to find help fast. He just didn't want to be alone. Not here. He placed the glow stick between his teeth and launched himself into the opening. As he began to drag himself forward, the pain pulsated every few seconds and his stomach clenched in accordance. But this was still better than waiting. Slowly but surely he inched his way forward, heaving himself on his belly, his shirt lifting and scraping his bare skin across the floor, but he didn't care. Finally, clammy, exhausted, and in agony, he heard the others up ahead.
Hey!
He yelled out, his voice hoarse and raspy from the fact that his chest was compressed by the floor and the roof of the small passage. At first there was no response. He yelled again.
Guys, it's me! I couldn't wait anymore!
Tom!
Kian's voice echoed down the burrow.
Yeah!
What are you doing? We're coming back for you now.
Too late! I must be almost with you guys now.
Are you alright?
Nah, not really, mate, but I'll be with you soon.
Okay, we'll have all the kits ready for you.
Okay.
Tom continued for about another 10 feet before he reached a corner. As he turned it, he felt a wave of relief rush through him, seeing the lights of the others' headlamps ahead. He crawled much faster now towards them, not even noticing the pain anymore, just filled with joy that he wasn't alone. Finally, the tunnel began to open up, and Tom pulled himself onto his knees, abruptly aware of the burning pain in his leg again. As he clambered to his feet and put weight on it, he felt a deep throbbing pain that reverberated through his tibia. He let out a gasp of pain, and his face twitched into an involuntary grimace as he hobbled towards the others.
I hope you've got some fucking strong-ass painkillers in there. Like some kit would be bloody marvellous at this point.
His voice was still shaken and weak. At last, he reached a small rock ledge and cautiously climbed down into the large chamber. It smelled like swamp water, and despite the others chattering, he could hear the water lapping not far from his location. As he turned his head and removed the glow stick from his teeth, the dull light reflected off the dark waters of a small underground lake. He clipped it to his collar. He limped towards his friends, noting it was a little weird that they hadn't immediately approached him, but guessing they were engrossed in discussing and evaluating what to do next. By the time he was about halfway to them, which took a minute or two, even though they were only 30 feet or so away, he was getting a little irritated that none of them even seemed to have acknowledged him.
Guys, I thought you were going to have the first aid kit out and ready for me. I'm not fucking about. My leg is killing me here.
The group, once again, ignored him.
Hello? What? Am I bloody invisible? Oi!
Still nothing.
Oi, you rude cunts. A little help.
The mumbling continued.
Fuck's sake.
Eventually, he shambled his way right up to them. His temper choking at the back of his throat, he grabbed Kian by the shoulder and pushed hard to turn him to face him.
Kian? What the...
He stopped dead as he stared in horror at the figure in front of him, dressed in Kian's clothes, sporting his hair but completely faceless, featureless. In the spot where his face should be, nothing but skin stretched over empty eye sockets like a cheap mannequin. Tom heard a deafening, piercing scream echoing all around him, off every surface of the cave, and after a moment realised it was coming from his own mouth. As he took in the heinous scene before him, none of them had a face. And 4 blank, pitted and stark countenances stared at him, their vacant eye hollows nothing but shadowy, deep voids of nothingness. In unison, their heads glitched to one side, and slowly, and in disturbing union, they raised their right hands to point at him. Tom's feet felt stuck fast. He tried to scream again, but nothing came out. Terror ripped through his body like a deluge. His ears screeched with high-pitched frequency. He fought with his body, and finally it cooperated as the monstrous things began to walk towards him, their movements gross and unnatural, their limbs cracking and snapping in an aberrant display as they marched forward. Tom ripped his feet free, stumbled backwards and fell to the ground. He scrambled backwards across the floor like a crab and felt his hands enter the frigid waters lapping at the shore of the subterranean lake. He pushed himself deeper into the water and as far away from the faceless horde as he could, deeper and deeper into the lake. They followed. Tom screeched as they got closer. Finally, he spun around and started splashing and swimming as fast as he could, screaming into the water, causing bubbles to rip up and around his face as he choked and spluttered, gasping for air. He didn't want to turn back around, but he needed to know where they were. He quickly craned his face over his left shoulder. They were gone. This offered no comfort. They could be anywhere, ready, watching, waiting. He continued to gargle and fight against the freezing water until his feet hit the bottom. He scrambled and splashed to climb out onto the stone small rim that ran along the back wall of the cave and the back side of the lake. He stumbled forward, tripped on a loose piece of stone and fell to his knees, desperately racing on all fours through the shallow water. Just then, the water around his hands and knees began to foam, thousands of white bubbles frothing like plumes of volcanic smoke around his limbs.
What the fuck?
He yelled hoarsely into the darkness. In the murky light of his glow stick, he watched in abject consternation as the white bubbles began to metamorphose, turning dark crimson red. He lurched forward, still trying to get out of the water, but as he did so, he felt it turn thick against his skin. The lake was blood, the smell of iron all around him. He retched and shrieked as he pulled his hands forward again, and the heavy, gelatinous, scarlet broth seeped off his fingers in clotted strings. He closed his eyes and panted hard. This wasn't real. This couldn't be happening. It had to be in his head. It had to fucking be in his head. Then he felt it again. The hot, putrid, stinking breath on his face. This time accompanied by the sound of a low, heavy death rattle. Tom swallowed hard and then let out a small yelp like a dog as he tried to choke down a despairing wail, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. His stomach twisted and his blood turned cold as he was caught by a wet, muculent digit-like something, one that did not belong to him. He felt the hyperborean thing slide down the side of his face, and in its trail a fiery, burning pain. He began to cry, uncontrollably, still not opening his eyes, for he knew whatever he saw would be the last thing that he ever did.
What are you?
He heard himself gag out in a stammer, though he already knew.
I'm the Ferryman,
Came the response in a low, rasping, unearthly voice. Tom felt the words reverberate through his entire rigid body. This was his end. Tom mentally told his family and friends that he loved them, breathed one last deep breath, and slowly he peeled open one eye to meet his fate. To be continued. The Entities is a Grim Pickens production, created, written, directed, and edited by Kat Clifford, starring Kat Clifford, Lee M.M., Galak Tom, Gabriella Good, and Alex Chu. Thank you for listening to Grim Pickens Productions.